All right, let's dive right into this explainer. I want you to ask yourself a really fundamental question about success. What actually unlocks it? I mean, is it just endless grueling hard work? Is it pure luck? Or is it a specific psychological lock with a unique combination that, honestly, most of us are just never taught?
You know, what's truly interesting here is how this concept completely challenges our everyday assumptions. We're so often looking for that one magic key, right? A specific university degree, a brilliant startup idea, or maybe just one lucky break. But success isn't a one-key scenario. It's a combination lock. It requires trying different permutations, shifting your mindset, and constantly adjusting your actions until that lock finally clicks open.
The source material we're digging into today decodes this combination as the BRAVE framework. It's a 5-step sequence that we're going to unlock piece by piece. But rather than just reading off a dry list of concepts to you, we're going to explore this code through the incredible, true-to-life journey of a young boy named Howard.
Okay, part 1, the success code. Howard's story actually starts in deep, deep poverty. To help support his sick mother, he worked these grueling hours delivering massive blocks of ice. Well, one day, while he was carrying a desperately heavy block into a wealthy neighborhood, a car full of rich teenagers honked aggressively right behind him. Startled and just completely exhausted, Howard dropped the ice. It shattered everywhere. And instead of helping him out, these teenagers laughed mercilessly at his struggle. One of them even threw a can at him. In that exact moment, he was totally powerless, humiliated, and just broken.
That brings us to the very first letter in our code, B, which stands for burn the pain. Human psychology tells us we're fundamentally driven by either pleasure or pain. So think about it. How do you handle your worst moments of humiliation? Instead of just wallowing in the sadness and victimhood of that extreme embarrassment, Howard took that burning anger and turned it into his absolute driving force. He literally used his poverty and that visceral memory of being mocked as his relentless fuel.
Moving into section 2, pain and new identity. Soon after that terrible incident, Howard was riding in the back of his ice truck when a discarded newspaper caught his eye. Right on the cover was Andrew Carnegie, with a massive headline detailing how a young boy from extreme poverty rose up to become an American billionaire. In that precise moment, Howard saw himself in that story. It sparked a massive, life-altering internal shift.
He ran all the way home so excited, telling his father that he too was going to be a billionaire one day. But his father harshly shut him down. He basically told him to stop dreaming, accept his place in life, and just get back to work. Now, despite getting that crushing negativity from his own flesh and blood, Howard fully adopted an abundant mindset. He wrote a goodbye letter, took whatever meager savings he had, and headed straight for Texas, stubbornly believing in his billionaire destiny.
As you can imagine, his journey down to Texas was incredibly rough. He didn't have enough money for a proper ticket, so he tried to hop a moving freight train while literally running from the local police. Just as his grip slipped and he was about to fall onto the tracks, a beggar in one of the train cars reached out and pulled him to safety. When Howard caught his breath and asked how he could ever repay the guy, the beggar asked for nothing in return, except one single promise. When you find someone in need and no one else can help them, you help them. That moment planted a very deep seed for Howard's future.
And this brilliantly illustrates our second letter, R. Rewire your identity. Think about this for a second. Howard internalized the identity of a future billionaire while he was jumping off a moving freight train with absolutely no money to his name. He wasn't waiting for his bank account to change before his mindset changed. He rewired his internal identity first. That is a step most of us completely miss, right? We wait to feel successful before acting successful, but this code demands the exact opposite.
All right, part 3, right questions and taking action. So Howard arrives in this dusty Texas town and practically begs a wealthy farmer for a job. The farmer actually laughed right in his face because Howard was small and looked physically weak. But Howard showed such fierce, undeniable determination, even while all the older, bigger men were laughing at him, but the farmer decided to hire him anyway for a massive, physically demanding fencing project. Now, the older farmhands had been working there for years, basically just complaining and never moving up. But Howard noticed that the farmer was the only truly rich man around. So, instead of asking for a small raise or an extra break like everybody else, Howard walked right up to the wealthy farmer in the dead of night and asked the ultimate question. How did you get rich? The farmer, kind of impressed by the audacity, smiled and gave him the blueprint. Build systems, be consistent, solve real problems, and become a leader.
Let's see how this builds our next letter, the A. Ask better questions. Most people waste time gossiping or asking the wrong things from the wrong people. Howard constantly probes successful people. Later on in his journey, he literally walked up to a man wearing a gold belt at a restaurant, which was a pretty obvious indicator of wealth back then, and simply asked how he made his fortune. Because he asked a better question, that man tipped him off about a massive oil boom happening right under the Texas soil.
But jumping back to the farm for a second, Howard put that farmer's advice to the ultimate test. The farmer needed a huge fencing job done fast. Howard boldly promised to do a 6-day job in just 1 day, as long as he got all 6 days' pay. It sounded completely absurd, but he stayed up until 3 a.m., organized the men based on their specific physical strengths, created a highly efficient assembly line system, and insanely enough, they finished the entire job in a single day.
This totally locks in the V, validate through action. Knowledge is completely useless if it just sits in your head, right? You have to actually apply it. Howard constantly proved his worth by actively applying what he learned to real-world problems. I mean, years later, when a college principal denied him entry because he lacked a formal degree, Howard correctly diagnosed the principal's mysterious, persistent skin rash as an allergy to the English ivy plant sitting right on his desk. He proved in real time that practical knowledge, when applied effectively, is what actually gets results. Section 4. Patience and Big Reward. So armed with that invaluable tip about the oil boom from the guy with the gold belt, Howard marries his college sweetheart, Hannah, and starts leasing land to drill for oil. But success absolutely does not happen overnight. He faces years and years of agonizing failure. He's drilling dry well after dry well, hemorrhaging money, and his resolve is just constantly being tested. It actually took his own young son, literally a kid, telling him to just leave it to the experts for Howard to finally swallow his immense pride and hire a top-tier geologist. And once he did, they finally struck massive, gushing reserves of oil. From there, his ascent is incredibly rapid. He beats a greedy landlord in court by finding and hiring the absolute best lawyer in town, and eventually pivots his massive wealth into the highly lucrative oil refinery business, securing a staggering fortune.
The final piece of the brave code is E. Endure delayed rewards. If Howard had settled for the comfort of a steady farmhand's wage, he never would have built an empire. His immense patience, his willingness to sacrifice immediate comfort, and his ability to push through years of literal dry dirt ultimately paid off. The lock had finally clicked open. He was a billionaire.
But here's where things take a pretty sharp turn. Section 5. The true wealth of life. Howard got the money, sure, but at what cost? His immense, unchecked wealth ends up completely spoiling his kids. To test their character, he gives them each $10,000 to donate to charity, and they all fail, prioritizing themselves entirely. Furthermore, his relentless obsession with business completely alienates his wife, Hannah. Over time, his top lawyer becomes his only true friend.
The tragic irony of his journey really peaks one quiet afternoon. Howard opens a newspaper and sees a massive headline about his own triumphant rags-to-riches story. The exact kind of article that inspired him as a boy in the back of that ice truck. He looks up, eager to celebrate, only to let the silence just wash over him. He realizes he is sitting in a massive, echoing mansion with absolutely no one to share his joy with. He was a billionaire, completely alone.
Then, suddenly, he gets an emergency call. His only real friend, his lawyer, has been in a horrific car crash and desperately needs a kidney transplant to survive the day, and no amount of money can buy a matching kidney in time. In that agonizing moment, the words of that beggar on the freight train from decades ago echo in his mind. Help someone in need when no one else can. Without a second of hesitation, Howard donates his own kidney. Waking up in the hospital bed right next to his surviving friend, Howard is overwhelmed with a profound joy that millions of dollars in oil revenue literally never brought him. He realizes the source's core message. Ultimate wealth, the refineries, the huge mansions, the endless bank balances, is completely hollow without an ultimate life, the human connections, the family, and the ability to actually be there to save a friend. So how do we actually balance this in the real world? To help you practically apply these leadership principles without sacrificing the people you love, the source material notes they offer a structured learning system. It includes a community subscription for 99 rupees a month, featuring curated book summaries alongside a 21-day challenge that's specifically designed to help you actively practice this balance of ambition and human connection every single day. Which brings us to the end of Howard's incredible journey, and perhaps a pivot in yours. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to really chew on. The Brave Blueprint can absolutely help you unlock immense financial success. But in your own daily pursuit of greatness,
Are you just chasing the money to build ultimate wealth? Or are you simultaneously building a human connection, an ultimate life that is actually worth living?